All right, and we are live. Welcome to the BrainDrive weekly development call update. Our mission here at BrainDrive is to build a superior user-owned alternative to big tech AI systems. And this call is where we update on our progress towards that mission in the last week and plan out the work for the coming week. I'm Dave Waring, and I handle the operations side here at BrainDrive.
And I'm David Jones, and I handle the technical operations side here at BrainDrive.
And BrainDrive is a user-owned, MIT licensed personal AI system that is built around one goal, which is helping you define and reach your goals. And so we do this with a locally running AI system that looks like ChatGPT, but with a big difference, which is this one is built to run completely under your ownership and control. So what you're seeing here now is running completely locally on my computer. And we have these default pages, which we view as the foundation of a successful life. If you're doing good in your career, you've got great relationships, you're in great health and fitness, and you've got your finances straight, it's going to be hard to have a bad life. So that's what we get you started with, and you can kick off these interviews, which create a goals, your spec basically, which defines what success looks like for your specific career situation after that interview, and creates a plan for moving you towards executing those goals as the main function. And then you come back and you update and you just keep getting better and better around this align and plan and execute process that we've got built into BrainDrive. And this will work not only for these default areas we have, but also for any new project that you wish to start, whether that be something in your personal life or your professional life. Under the BrainDrive settings, we have different model providers here. You can choose the BrainDrive model, which we update based on what we feel has the best cost performance trade-offs for what BrainDrive does here. If you don't want to use that, you can use OpenRouter, which gives you access to over 400 cloud-based AI models. And if you'd like to run everything locally on your own computer for complete privacy, you won't even need an internet connection once you download your open source models. We have native integration with Olama to make that happen. So it's free to get started and actually free to do everything. If you use the BrainDrive model, you can pay by credit. If you have an OpenRouter API key, you pay that way. And if you use Olama, it's 100% free. And because it's all MIT licensed and open source, it's all will be that way forever for you. So um, we feel like we've got something really special here, and we're in the early stages of development, and we'd love you to try it out and offer your feedback. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dave to update us on the development progress from last week.
Okay, let's go and start with a little screen sharing since we have stuff to show this week. Let's go to where it's going to be. That's going to be this screen. Okay. And I don't know if you can see the Zoom part. Let's get that out of there. Let's see. We'll go to the changelog first. And this is 0601. So we had two big pushes last week. The first one, after Dave and I were playing with it, Dave mostly started it, and then I took over. Was like, hey, we want to redesign the entire memory architecture, and from basically top to finish on how your memory will exist, and then more importantly, how the apps will work within your memory, and then how to handle customization from user standpoint and not allow the app to get lost in the process with all the different information. So for that, we came through and just really broke it down, everything in the details. We established rule files for the apps, so they have a set of rules to follow. And then on top of that, where every file that has rules and agent files and such, there is a dash user file. And as you can see in my screen where I played around with it, I went through the user file for the ultimate or for the main agent MD, and I just added one line that every response you're going to talk like a pirate. And it's just a really quick test. And as you can see right here, all of a sudden I'm getting BrainDrive advice. It's a pirate little voice. So it works the way I wanted it to. It should, and that's a really quick, if you're ever doing anything in this where it's like you want to see it works, just put in one line where you know you're going to break it. And so you can see it break and you go, okay, this works. And then you can start playing around a little more. So I was pretty happy to see that. And then we moved right into out of that one into, hey, now our sidebar menu is not quite what we're looking for. And I have nothing loaded on this right now, so that's probably half the problem. But you would have normally a budget sitting here, and then you can go in budget and your files, and you have an entire breakdown without hitting you with a ton of information. And I was in the middle of coding this morning, so it's like I broke my own stuff. It happens sometimes. Um, but then all of a sudden, let's see, we switched gears a little bit. We're working on the desktop installers. We did Windows. We showed that off a little this week. We had to catch up with Mac. That was completed, and both the Windows and the Mac executables will be rolled out this morning. And hopefully in a way where Dave can easily not have to change with links on the website at any point. They just every week it'll just catch up. There'll be the latest. That's what users will be grabbing from the website. And so no matter when you grab the executables, it'll always be the latest piece of code, and we're not messing around with versions. Then after that, we had our course dependent bot telling us where we have problems at and allowing us to easily identify them and resolve them. And then the budget statement upload so the owners can upload more than one file. And Dave and I were talking earlier about the due diligence. We'll use AI for a lot of testing functionality. And the AI didn't care that it had to upload each file individually. But when Dave was testing and he had probably 10, 12 documents, that I immediately was like vision in my mind. That was a sad experience. So we correct that. And at the end of the last week, we were starting to delve a little bit harder into the test harness because as a two-person team, we need to expand. And we're going to hire more testers, and they're all going to be AI agents, so to speak. And that just came to this morning's conversation of the test harness works really good for catching functionality stuff. So, does the pop-up window for you to upload a document work and that kind of thing? Where the AI was failing and the test harness was failing is we need to go further, and because after we're through testing an entire, we'll call it a life cycle, Katie logs in. Can she register? Can she assign a model? Can she do her interview into finance? How quickly that can roll over into her planning her budget and providing the information, and then moving that into a how well did I do, where you start comparing month to month type of situation. We get into the user experience, and where those aren't quite listed as bugs by a functionality test, they do become an issue as far as what the user is going through, because a poor user experience means you have somebody shutting off the app, and it really doesn't help anybody. So that's probably going to be my focus, especially starting this morning and then moving into testing it, and so that we can improve the budget app, which, as Dave and I were talking about earlier, that's the hardest one we probably will be delving into, especially for an initial foray. So the sooner we get that one rocking, the lower hanging fruit, which are much easier to do, we should be able to just scream through in blinks. But that's basically what we did last week.
Awesome. If you want to stop sharing
Yep.
for a second, so Dave's been working on the back end of our process, which is the test harness that he's talked about, and also the middle, which is all the orchestration of the development of BrainDrive that we do. And I'm trying to work on the front end of the process, which is basically how do we plan and prioritize the work that we're going to be doing. So I've done a lot of work on that, and I'm not going to do a long presentation here, but just to keep me on track. So this is just a brief overview of how we decide what we want to build and do our planning and prioritization process, and why this matters. I think a lot of teams are seeing this now where AI is an accelerant, and if you don't know what you're accelerating towards, then you can quickly spin out of control. And I think that's happening to a lot of development teams right now. And there's so many opportunities, it's easy to just get shiny objects
Yep.
syndrome and go all over the place. And we've been guilty of that in the past, and we want to make sure we avoid that mistake in the future. So, on the flip side, though, if you have an aligned team with a clear destination that you're driving towards together, then AI is going to put you on the fast track.
Yep.
And that's what we want to be on, as a fast track towards our destination. And in order to be on a fast track towards a destination, you have to define what that destination is. And that is our roadmap, which is publicly available in the BrainDrive repo on GitHub. It's broken down into 5 phases: own, benefit, connect, earn, and decentralize. We're in phase 2 of that roadmap now. Benefit, and that's the 4 default pages plus your agent. We refer to that internally as BrainDrive plus one, and being able to use BrainDrive as your personal AI system that's under your complete ownership and control. So that's everything that Dave just talked about. We're in this benefit uh, phase of our roadmap. So that's the destination, and building that superior user-owned alternative to big tech AI systems. So we want to do everything that the big tech AI systems like ChatGPT do, but and more, and also under your complete ownership and control. So that's our North Star. And I think this roadmap breaks down into 4 buckets of work when it comes to BrainDrive, the product. There's operations stuff that sits outside of this, but we're talking about prioritizing the roadmap for BrainDrive, the software now, the open source project. And the 4 buckets are the foundation. This is everything that something else takes advantage of with BrainDrive. So things like the installers and the interfaces and the personal AI architecture that it's built on that keeps it under your ownership and control. There's a lot of work that's already gone into this. There's going to be a lot of work continuing to maintain this. And as we build out new functionality and features, it will likely require additions to the foundations to be able to support that. So then we have your agent, or what we refer to internally as BrainDrive plus one. And this is the one agent that you can talk to across all your pages. So that you should be able to talk to your agent about anything, and it should recognize if there's already a page for that and route you to the right place and put the information in the right place in your memory to keep track of everything, etc. And so this should feel like your Jarvis, basically.
Yep.
And then we have our default pages. So career, fitness, finances, and relationships. These are the life areas that ship with, and what we've chosen because we believe they're the foundation of a successful life. You can agree with that and use those, or you can not agree with any of that and delete them and use them as a basis for creating whatever you think the foundation for your successful life is. But we're focused on those default pages as both hoping that people will use those to improve their life, but also as an example for people that want to do different or more things. And then that's where the add-on pages come into play. And in the future, you'll be able to create pages that you can share with others. And right now, you can create pages using the new project features and functionality within BrainDrive to add additional pages to your BrainDrive and adjust the behavior based on the architecture that Dave was talking about, the your memory architecture.
Yep.
So these are the 4 buckets of BrainDrive work. And there's obviously the development of this, and then there's the maintenance of these 4 buckets. And in terms of how we can think about these, each of these buckets, the foundation, your agent, the default pages, and the add-on pages, can each have their own roadmap and
Yep.
even roadmaps within this. So the foundation will likely be one roadmap, but and your agent will be one roadmap. But the default pages, there'll be an overall, like, what does V1 look like for our default pages? And then each fitness, finance, career, etc., relationships will have its own roadmap. And then perhaps even if we have an app like the budgeting app, it will
Yep.
have a roadmap. So this is fractal in
Yep.
nature, basically, is what we're talking about here. But we need to make sure that even though there's going to be all these separate roadmaps and prioritization within these individual features and functionality and foundation and pages, etc., that it all rolls up into the destination, right? The 5 phases as one cohesive product. Okay, so then what I've been working on, and I'll have more to show in the future, is skills that allow us to go through this process with the AI to turn each of these default pages and your agent, which is what we're working on right now as part of phase 2 of our roadmap, the benefit part, into a research project that, if we had a team of people doing research to decide what features and functionality should we have for these pages, this is what I think they would do. So we would start out with a brainstorm, which is just what do we think, a finance app should include if we could have a financial advisor that was available to us 24/7 for all anything we wanted, what would we want that person to do? That's the brainstorm. Then we take that brainstorm and we go out and the AI does a landscape research, which goes out and looks at all the different apps that offer features and functionality in the realm of finance. What do they offer? Then we look at search engine optimization around that to see what are people actually looking for. Sorry, also within the landscape, we look at what do people like and not like, and what are
Yeah.
they asking for that may not exist out there right now. So we can incorporate that. We do the SEO. What are people searching for? What do they like, not like, etc. Then we do an interview, which takes all this information and works with us to prioritize what's the V1 or in the future V2. Like, let's not include everything, but what does like a good V1 of this look like? And everything else will be a cut after that and put on a future roadmap. And this will allow us to finalize like this is our V1 roadmap for phase two that we're in right now, this benefit. And then we build out the plan for how we're going to execute on that. So I'm doing this process right now with the AI, and it's pretty awesome. If you if I had a team of people and they handed me this research, I would be like, okay, this is badass.
Yeah.
So I think AI has now, and I think we're going to see this soon, the things that coders experienced in sort of December and the first quarter of 26, I think content people and product managers more
Hmm.
broadly that are doing things that aren't just software are going to start experiencing because it's went from this is a nice copilot to like, oh no, like it can pretty much just do this now. Um, okay, so then we go. I ran this for fitness. I'm going to show that. I'm not going to spend a long time walking through this whole thing today in this call, but Dave and I will go through it and we'll present it in a future call. Okay, so that's how we come up with all the work that we want to do around creating our V1. But this is where I think, most open source projects are really buggy because everyone wants to focus on the new, shiny, let's create something new.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to focus on doing a few things really, really well
Yep.
and making sure those things are working like they're supposed to be working and bug free as our number one priority before we take on anything new, right? And
Yep.
that way we can make sure that what we're building actually works for the end user, owner, BrainDrive owner in this case. But then also we can make sure that we're not building on a buggy
Yep.
foundation, that the foundation that we're building on is strong. So this is the grind work that a lot of open source projects, because they're not paying people to work on them, it just gets left behind. And we're going to avoid that. So we have these 6 tiers, right, that we've defined. So tier one is in terms of how we prioritize the work. So our top priority is anything that breaks trust on something that's already in the software. So
Yep.
this would be at the absolute top would be some security issue, right? Like that would be like number one. But then behind that is any bug, anything that's just really not working.
Yep.
We do an update and something breaks, those types of things. Everything else that's involved in new work gets put on hold until we fix the thing that has already shipped. Then we have our foundation. So we always need to make sure that we're building on a strong foundation, number one. So, we're not building our house on a foundation of sand, but also the foundation work applies to everything else. So you get like your most bang for your buck. If you add something like document processing, which is a foundational thing, it works across all of our different
Yep.
pages and applications, etc. So we get a lot of bang for our buck at the foundation level. Then we have our V1 active phase, which we're in phase two now, and that's building out our page functionality. And then we don't just move on and start developing a bunch of new stuff once we've done V1. We want to make sure that we have enough resources that we're putting into to improving on
Yep.
what we already have, right? So that's the next. Then it's things once we have our V1 and we have a good process in place for improving and we've got the bandwidth, we want to now work on, okay, we've got the product defined. Now we want to work on making this functionality available to the community so the community can build on top of this and take a lot of the expansion work in whatever direction they want to once the product has been defined with a solid V1 and a solid improvement process. So we work on making sure that we're ready for that, and then the community takes it and runs with it. So that's the 6 levels of prioritization. And then within this is the system that actually does the work. So this is this process that we're developing right now to work with the AI to help us with this prioritization process. It's the orchestration system that Dave's working on to do the actual development once we've planned everything.
Yep.
And then it's the test harness, right? So we're working on that's the software factory, right?
Yep.
And it's becoming pretty clear that the software projects, whether they be open source, closed source, or something in between, that have this are going to be like the factories that have that are electrified,
They were the first ones to have electricity versus steam.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is going to really accelerate, and the people that don't have this are just going to be completely left behind. So, this is really important that when we discover something that we have to do manually, our
Yep.
first intuition should be how can we improve our system so that we don't have to do this manually again in the future, especially if it's something that we're going to have to do over and over
Yeah.
again.
Like the UX testing that we were, this
Yes.
weekend, that came from this weekend.
Yep. The planning process,
Yep.
right? It's something we're going to have to do over and over and over again. Okay. So, really partnering with AI to make sure that AI and that both Dave and I, eventually the wider community and the AIs are aligned and have a systematic way of working together so that we're on a track towards our destination and we aren't spinning out all over the place. And this is where the rubber meets the road is we have internally, eventually this will be opened up to the community as well, but we have BrainDrive Pulse, which is our to-do list tracker that's managed by the AI. And then we have our daily agenda where Dave and I are focused on making sure that we're not losing track of our top priorities and knowing when something's been checked off and we can add something new to the agenda. So that's the process that's coming together now. And it's a rough draft still, but I think we're ready to start. We're ready to take this car out onto the track and, see where it slams into the wall and see where it's running fast,
Well,
etc.
and it helps that some of that we had already been doing. So we're just
Yes.
really adding, pieces here and there on the car to hopefully make it go faster.
Yes. So with that, let's now see here. And I was doing that presentation down to the wire, so I actually haven't looked at this. But again, we've said it's a rough draft. So,
Hey, you don't get to hear it by waking up Monday going, I don't have a call till 10. I'll take the day off.
yeah, right. Okay, so we have 2 types of work here. Our priorities are what we refer to as our rocks and the day-to-day things that come up that aren't a top priority but are needed to continue to fly the plane, so to speak. We call that our sand. We always want to make sure there's enough room in the jar for the rocks first, and we focus on our rocks as the main thing because the sand fits around the rocks. That's from a book or something that I took from somewhere. I didn't make it up, but I like the analogy. So right now, and the AI did all this based on this planning process
Yep.
that I'm working through. So right now I have enable, that's a bucket of work that enables the work to happen, right? So this is review and accept the per surface V1 definitions for the BrainDrive V1 rollup. So this is what we're talking about. I'm in the process of making sure we have a well-defined what does V1 look like for each of these pages and the your agent so that we can call phase 2 like at a V1 level, right? And I'm working on that, and Dave and I are talking about that, and that's where the budgeting stuff that he talked about comes into play and all that. So that's definitely one of my top priorities. going through the budgeting and dog fooding it with my own uh, personal finance stuff. I'm also working on that. And the reason why this is a priority is one, because it's part of the V1 finance page, but also it's our first complicated app. And so
Yep.
we really want to dial this in as a template that we can then use to build additional apps faster in the future. And this also brought in document processing, which is a
Yep.
big deal. And then once I've done those things, the content production process, which is going to dovetail in very nicely with the product planning process. So that's probably what I'm going to be focused on for the next bit here. And I think that that looks right for my priorities. What do you think, Dave?
Yep. It's right along
Okay.
what
And
we've kind of discussed at the end of the week last week. So
yes. Okay. So I'm still working on
yep.
all this and I'm hoping to have the product stuff completely done and gone over with Dave and we're good and we can present that in next Monday's call. And then I'm all content all the time after that, plus testing, the stuff that comes out. Um, so that's good. And then we had a little conversation about maybe changing an icon. I think I'm just going to take this off. I don't think it's a priority right now, but that's a good example of
Yep.
sand. It's not a priority to look at the settings. It's not a top priority
Yep.
rock to go to see if we want to change the settings icon. And then moving our whether or not we want to move our BrainDrive.ai website off of Vercel or not.
Yep.
So that's looks correct in terms of the things that I was thinking about. And then for you, I have the Mac plus Windows install, build and sign one button scripting.
Yep.
I think you talked about that
Yep.
as launch now.
Uh,
And then
y-
yeah,
yeah,
go
that
ahead.
goes through. Yeah, well, I can answer it today if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because the scripts, I'm going to test them out today. I have an entire list of things to watch that go through, and then I need to get on the Windows so we can sign that so users don't get hit by, hey, this might be an untrustworthy application. So it'll work as similar as the Mac does already right now.
And once we've done all that, in addition to having a clean install on Windows and having an automated process for doing this in the future, we also then have the ability to access the desktop application from the browser so we can start looking at tail scale,
Yep,
right?
those are already in both Mac and Windows can be accessed from a browser once you have them installed. They become like a mini server for you, and then that starts today of going and Telescale the spec, reviewing that, and going through and say, hey, this is what we can do to facilitate and make this easier for every user.
And that's right
Yeah,
here. So that's good. And then the other big one is our test plus orchestration harness
yep,
specs so that we
done.
make sure. Oh, you
I,
got the
I'm
specs done.
I had the specs done. I just haven't handed them off to you because I was fixing the stuff that you had found this weekend, and I really didn't have a chance to really go through it. But I did the test for the spec as we currently have the harness written. I
Yep.
have a so everything at the wall test harness, if it was advanced and dynamic, what would that look like as a separate spec? And then the orchestration layer, I have started working on that spec of what is that going to need to do for, like we discussed, can it handle looking at the library, updating the library, make sure it's grabbed everything new, and then doing drift checks to make sure that our application BrainDrive is following the architecture, the PAA, all the time. And so just in case things get missed, and then we'd like to see that go the next level of, hey, I found an issue. Now I'm going to identify it. Here's the fix for it. And the first line of will be me being the human in the loop saying, let me read this first. But then when we get a little confidence, we'd like to see, okay, I just went ahead and fixed this for you because it was really little. And here you go. You can take a look at that.
Okay. So this is a big one
Yep.
and the right thing to be as a rock.
Yep.
And I don't think you need a lot more on your rocks, other than that. Um, okay. Now, in terms of now, there's a pull queue that's been added to the agenda. So we can always have in mind if you do have extra
Yep.
time or finish something, we're not scrambling for what's next.
Yep.
So next would be this build plus propagate. This is for the memory architecture. We don't have propagate yet fully
Yeah.
spec'd and built out, which is making sure that the AI is always keeping everything up to date
Yep.
as it's doing work in your brain drive. That seems like a good next rock candidate. Yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah. 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 Because that's where everything starts to come together. I mean, if there's an importance level, it's right there because I think that's when the dream that when we talked about this and nothing was coded, that's when that starts coming to alive.
Yeah, and then for me, I think going a little bit beyond V1, just so we make sure we have. I don't want like detailed roadmaps for beyond V1, but just so we have like sort of buckets of work, that we want to be doing. Um, and then we have some sand here, the hosting remove.
Yep.
I need to start working on building public forum posts. I don't know if I put that as sand. That might be actually a part of this content rock,
Yep.
but it's good that it's on there. Uh, yeah, these I think could be improved. I don't think we really need to work on new page roadmap briefs right now. We've got so much to do with the existing pages. We do need to look at the to-do app though, because that app was built before our new memory architecture.
Yep.
So that is a good one. But I think we both have plenty of work with if we can really dial in the front of the process for me and the middle and back of the process for you and really get our software factory
Yep.
turned on completely this week, even if it's a little sputtering around, that's a big deal. Agreed?
Yes. Oh, no, definitely. Because right now it's like we have the same problem. We're just on different ends. Yours is
Yeah.
the going into it, and mine is the coming out of this test harness has to be better for us to really gain speed.
Yep.
Because that's our fat kid on the march right now.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Anything else you want to talk about on the
Uh,
live stream today?
Nope, pretty good. I think next week, though, like you said, we'll be talking about the entire process and how that looks a little bit more in depth. And then from my side should probably be the one be Monday, because Monday is a pretty big release day, and how far are we coming to automate that? And then, of course, the testing process.
Sounds good. So with that, we'll call it for today. And as we talked about at the beginning of the call, our mission here at BrainDrive is to build a superior user-owned alternative to big tech AI systems. We do these development calls every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, live streamed here on YouTube, and post the recordings over on our forum at community.braindrive.ai. So we'd love it if you join us and participate in either place. We're always open to your feedback, comments, and contributions. And with that, we'll see you next week.
Have a good one.
Thank you.